Okay, so what is the story about?
This is the story of how we met in
Sort of met.
strange, frightening circumstances.
This is probably the scariest thing that has ever happened to me in my life. How did it start? What led us to going out into the woods that night?
Well, it was freshman year of college. We'd hung out a couple times with our large-ish group of friends, and we were going to go on a woods walk. We're at Evergreen State College, beautiful campus.
1,100 acres of forest on campus.
So we'd done a few of those. We were getting kind of comfortable with the woods at that point, and we were going to do another one, and it was around this time of year. It was October 30th.
30th.
And
10 o'clock at night, might I add.
yes, it was pretty late when we started, and we were going to go with, I don't know if it was going to be a few friends or if it was just our one friend, but it ended up dropping down to him, and then he dropped out and encouraged us to just go ahead.
So we thought nothing of it, and we're like, let's go on a woods walk. It's 10 at night, we've done this before, no biggie. One more question before we start telling the story. Where were we going?
Where
in
were
the
we
woods?
going? Oh, I think we were trying to find this landmark we had dubbed the altar site, where there's this kind of opening in the forest, and there's these trees that surround this mound that people were leaving various little bits and baubles, and they kind of made these makeshift shrines, and it was really quirky, and it was just a good landmark for us to kind of orient ourselves in the woods.
Yeah.
So that was our goal, but
It was dark.
it was dark, and I don't know when we got off the path or why, but we did. And it might have had something to do with our light sources, which were our cell phones, but we kind of just kept getting more and more lost.
So we started off in the woods. It's tiny little paths to get to this site. It's dark out, it's night. We have only taken this path a couple times. I mean, we felt pretty comfortable in the woods though. We'd been to a lot of these locations before. And I remember wandering around, thinking we were on the right path, and suddenly we started to see the same landmarks we'd been seeing before. And I think it was about 45 minutes into our walk, starting at 10 o'clock, that we started to realize that we were not finding our way out of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point we were like, well, maybe we can backtrack a little bit, try and follow these landmarks out. Well, we kept ending up at the same landmarks. The typical story, it always starts that horse story out with wandering in circles in the woods. So I remember at one point kind of being like, well, if we have to spend the night out here, that's cool. I hope you like cuddling, because it's going to be a really cold night in October. But we hardly knew each other, so that would have been really awkward, and we both wanted to get back to our rooms.
Especially since we were becoming aware that we were probably going to be, it was probably becoming Halloween while we were out there, which was just
a little
it was
disconcerting.
a little unnerving. Not that it would have made a huge difference, but it was kind of like, we happened to get lost on Halloween at midnight.
Yeah. So finally I'm like, all right, you know what? This patch of woods is surrounded by roads and water. We are either going to find roads and water, and we are going to find our way out of these woods. So we started bushwhacking it in a straight line about 45 minutes in, once we realized we were never going to find our way out trying to find landmarks. And that's when we wandered into a tent at some point that just seemed to be out there in the middle of the woods. I remember wandering through a couple swamps. We got pretty wet, didn't we? There was rivers.
Yeah.
I remember scratching our faces on trees and bushes and just going in a straight line. And so probably after about another 45 minutes of that, we stumbled out onto a nice large trail. And that was so heartwarming. It was so nice to see a big path out there after wandering around through the woods. We finally thought we were out of there. We were good. So after finding that trail and heading up it a little ways, we wandered into a meadow. And
we really should have recognized it.
We should have.
But we didn't.
And
I guess we hadn't been there in the dark.
We'd never been there in the dark before. Once we got into this meadow, we lost the trail. And we sort of thought we saw it going off into the other side of the meadow, completely other side. So we wandered...
What was in the tree line?
Yeah. So we wandered to the other side of the meadow and entered the tree line. And realized we were not finding the path.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of stumbled around for a little bit.
And once we realized we were not finding the path, we were like, well, I guess we should probably turn around and go back in the meadow. And that is when we heard...
something horrifying. We'll probably play a sound clip for you or something, because it's really hard to describe, but the way we always described it to people afterwards was that it was like a woman, like a screaming woman combined with a dying pig combined with a ringwraith.
Bird, yeah, like pig, bird, woman thing. It was horrifying. It was like... scary.
But 5 times longer.
Yeah, 5 times longer. It was loud. Just shriek. And I just remember stopping and being like, what the hell was that?
It just pierced through this dead silence, and everything was calm again. Except our nerves.
Our nerves were broken. So, yeah, we heard ringwraith, and I think I said, what was that? And you said, I don't know. And I said, well, let's get back to the meadow where we can kind of see things. So, kind of nerve shot, we stumbled back into the meadow and we're kind of standing in the middle of it. Not really sure what to do at this point because we're in the woods and so is a demon and we don't really know how to get out. It's the perfect horror story, you know? You don't know how to get out of the woods and now there's something nasty. So, sitting there and,
we heard it again.
Yep, we heard it again. And this
really
time,
close.
It lasted really long, and it was in the tree line right next to us. Then we heard a large branch snap.
Well, you missed an important detail. During
Right.
all this, you hugged me out of total fear.
You would want me to remember that, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I hugged Sean, and I didn't know him, and I was really embarrassed immediately afterwards, but also in sheer terror and probably shitting myself at that point. So, we heard the scream again, and it lasted a really long time. At least in our minds. I don't know how long it lasted, but it lasted longer than the first one.
Yeah. Sounded more angry.
I don't know about you, Sean, but I was terrified.
I remember
never
that
been like
it
that.
was really scary, but that for some strange reason I was kind of rationally calm. And I don't know why. Maybe it was because Harmony was clearly scared. And I guess it helped that there was someone who was more frightened about the situation than I was. Or maybe because I was trying to be the manly man, I don't know. But it was... in the back of my mind, I was trying to think, like... because I didn't know a whole lot about animals. So I didn't know if it could have been an owl. And it sounded like it was kind of above us a bit. I'm not sure if that's actually the case. But I figured that it wasn't a monster or a demon. And it probably wasn't our friend who would come back to screw with our minds or anything like that, because
We would have heard him
following
us in the woods. Sorry, Colin. And then we heard a branch snap in this bushy tree line about, I don't know, 15 feet away from us.
Yeah. Did the tree fall over, like a small tree or something?
No, it was just like a branch snap, like a.
The darkness was.
Yeah, it was dark.
Concealing
we
a
could
lot.
not see very much, even in the bright-ish meadow.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually probably made seeing things in the tree line harder for us.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think about it.
And at this point, it was totally past midnight.
Yeah. And the only thing we were hearing in the woods this night was this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at that point I just didn't know what the F to do. And I turned and I looked over my shoulder and suddenly I saw the path that we had been on curving around the meadow and going up in a different direction. And I was like, holy crap, that's why we missed the trail, because when we entered the meadow we were thinking, oh, we're in the meadow, so the trail must cross it. No, it went right along the edge of it. So I was like, Sean, there's the meadow. Let's get out of here.
And so we did.
Kind of back-to-back style.
Yeah, because we weren't sure where this thing was. We didn't want to be facing away from it. Did we hear it again?
Yes, further up the trail. At this point, we are walking up the trail, back to back. We have our phone lights out that are about to die. In fact, I think one of them did die at that moment because we'd been using them way too much in the woods. Then I remember hearing footsteps on either side of the trail, because it was fall and there were leaves on the ground. And I would hear footsteps on one side of the leaves, one side of the trail and the leaves on the edge. And then it would cross and I wouldn't hear anything. And then suddenly I would hear footsteps on the other side of the trail in the leaves.
I was not aware of this at the time.
So I was freaking out. And then we heard it scream again, and it was right behind us. And
we ran.
Sean ran, actually.
Well, no, we
Okay, fine.
Okay, I started to run, and you followed.
Okay, yeah, so Sean ran first, and I lost my hat and went back for my hat because it was a very special hat.
You're not supposed to do the Indiana Jones thing.
And then I took off after Sean, and suddenly we ended up in this huge meadow, and we knew where we were. We knew exactly where we were.
It was miraculous.
Yes.
In a sudden moment of clarity, I was able to suddenly, find the orientation
everything.
we were at every point during our journey. But I wasn't really thinking about that, actually. I was thinking about, how
get across the meadow.
Yeah. I didn't feel safe yet.
So we kept running, and we ran all the way across the meadow, which ended up on the roadside. Like we thought, keep following through the woods, you're going to hit the roads or the water. We hit the roads, and we were very close to where we needed to go. So we get across the meadow, and I just remember being completely shaky and stammery and being like, I have never experienced anything like that in my life. I don't know if you have, but this scared the crap out of me. That was wild. I don't know what to do. And as we hit the roadside, I remember hearing the scream one more time, but whatever it was stayed in the tree line and would not come out. So I guess we were kind of lucky. Mm-hmm. But we were freaked out. We were like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm gonna go to sleep. Yeah, we'll talk about it in the morning. And we both went to sleep, kind of. We got up the next morning and we met up with friends, and we told everybody what happened, and it just became like this.
I think
local
you told
legend.
a lot more people, or you told some people that started spreading it fast.
Yes, it started spreading fast, and it just became this college legend
about
of
the Banshee,
in
in the
the woods, and it lasted a couple months.
Yeah, like we had friends who were super into it. They were gonna like make a documentary,
documentary
interview us,
about
and
it.
track down whatever it was. Well, the day after, we went back to the same spot with a bunch of friends and tried to kind of find evidence of maybe what had happened.
But it was like ice cold. There were like no tracks or anything. The ground was frosted. I'm sure amazing trackers could have found something, but
Yeah, probably.
we are failures. So that happened, and nothing else really happened for a couple of years.
Yeah, we gradually began to trust the woods again, but we didn't really make ventures out.
You kind of began to be able to trust the woods again, but I kind of remember. I don't know. I still sometimes when I'm out in the woods at night and it's dark and I hear something that I don't understand, I almost feel like post-stress disorder. I don't know.
But we'd spend a lot more time in the woods to follow, but it was usually with like a decent
More
group
people.
of friends.
I've always felt more uncomfortable in the woods at night when there's a few of us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've actually had to leave. Like, I just have to get out of the woods. I just can't put up with it anymore. And it's sad because I really like being in the forest. But then we were talking with some friends of ours about the experience, and
A couple years later.
And we described the sound for him, and he said, "I've heard that before." And we were like, "Really? Do you know what it is?" He said, "Yeah, it's a cougar."
And we just, or I wasn't there for this, but you just heard about like a cougar that had treed several people in the evergreen woods.
Yeah, actually,
just
we'd been tracking
few weeks before.
We've been tracking about cougars were kind of making appearances about twice a year at campus.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought about it and I backtracked on the years, our date kind of lined up with the once every 6 months appearance abouts. So it's kind of where we left it. How did you feel after learning that, Sean?
Well, it was kind of like, at this point, I'd written off the experience as well. It was weird, but it could have been anything. We didn't get hurt. It was weird, but it was fine. Then when when it's a cougar, it's like, oh holy crap, we could have died. And we did some things very wrong for dealing with a cougar, like running. And it was mad. Like we were pretty sure that
It must have had a kill or
it
something.
had a kill because we did.
Or babies. I don't know.
In subsequent
Kill.
visits out to the woods, we'd seen.
We'd seen some deer kills out in the woods. We had some friends who had some experiences with running into deer kills out in the woods that coincided with cougar visits and cougar tracks, and cougar habit of putting them in trees and such. So that's kind of what we imagine was going on, is maybe that meadow or close to that meadow in the tree line where we ended up. There had been a kill.
And it just didn't want people
Messing
around.
with it. Anything messing with it.
Yeah, just didn't trust us or something.
But mixed feelings about that. I mean, it was being loud. It was being vocal, and it was giving us hell. And usually when a cat does that, it's not out to kill you. It's out to scare you away, being territorial. But part of me is sketched because when we were going up the path and hearing it move from side to side on the trail, that's something they do to get the better of you. And
when they're trying to get behind you and surprise you.
Yeah. So it leaves me with very mixed feelings about what that cat was trying to do.
And mixed feelings is a good way to sum it all up, because although it was utterly terrifying. The fear crafted like these super solid, unbreakable bonds between us.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Cougar, for not slaying us and perhaps bringing us together instead.
Yeah. Trauma is one of the most bonding experiences you can ever have. So, that is our scary story for Halloween or whatever. It's mostly just for us to record it and have it on record forever.
Yep.
So, and now we're sharing it with you.
Only go into the woods with friends. Unless you're like some crazy tracker or something, then you're more qualified than us. Do what you need to do.
No. 3 or more. 2's not enough. The cat will get you.
Listen to her.